Hello, everybody. I'm Helen with One Structural and our divisions Retrofit 1, ADU1, and Balcony 1. Thank you for joining us today. I know I haven't done a live in a couple of weeks. We've been a little busy. We do have a couple of expos coming up that I do want to tell you guys about. Next week on Tuesday, the 18th, we will be at AGLA's Expo in Pasadena, and we are also presenting on stage 1 at 2:30. We have a booth as well, so come on down to meet us, hear our presentation. We're going to be presenting about accessory dwelling units, ADUs, as well as your new balcony laws, SB 326 and SB 721. Multifamily properties, apartment buildings, HOAs are now required to get their balconies, decks, all exterior elevated elements inspected, and then of course subsequent repairs if needed. So we will be presenting that day. We have a booth. Come on down. It'll be lots of fun. And then at the end of the month, October 27th, we will be at another expo for the AOA in Long Beach, I believe, also presenting that day as well. I don't know what time off the top of my head. I think 12:30, something like that. But give us a call or email us if you want to register for any of them. I'm getting a comment asking, are you there? I hope you guys can hear me or see me. I don't see any issues on my end. So hopefully you guys can hear me. Okay. So today we are going to go over the general ADU rules for multifamily as always, as well as single family rules as well, and how all of the new laws and the recent bill that did just pass, I believe August 31st, it passed, Senate Bill 897. There are so many bills to try to remember, but Senate Bill 897 had a lot of amendments to the 2019-2020 ADU law for the state. And so that passed end of August and will be effective January 1st. To my knowledge, all local cities, counties are going to be hopefully revising, amending their local ordinances to integrate the new laws. The specific one, of course, being the height limit, or now height allowance, I guess I'll say. So we're going to go over all the general rules, as well as how the new rules, specifically SB 897, affects you, your property, and your ADU. We will also discuss, because not only does 897 address the height, it also addresses a few other rules as well, and topics, including unpermitted units, which we get calls about maybe every single day, about having, a bootleg unit, an unpermitted dwelling unit, a unit that was done, of course, without a permit back in the day, whether the owner did it themselves or you purchased your property with that already there, and how to get that legalized. So we've always helped customers in the past with them, but luckily it looks like this law is going to make it a little bit easier. Again, effective in January, so we'll see how it really affects plans and inspections and all of that. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation today. Thank you, Sean, for putting in the chat. Just always let me know if you can't hear me, or if there's any technical difficulties, let me know. But hopefully it should be smooth sailing from here. So again, I'm Helen with One Structural. Multifamily construction experts. Our divisions are Retrofit 1 for seismic retrofitting, ADU1 for obviously ADUs, accessory dwelling units, and Balcony 1 for your balcony and deck and all exterior elevated element inspections that you are required to do every 6 years. And this was effective in 2019. So, okay, here is the slide. Hopefully you can see it. That's me. Our general email, if you have any questions that aren't answered today, and if you have any questions as well, please put them in the chat. I don't know which side they are for you, but I'm sure you could see it. They're on the right side for me, maybe the right side for you as well. Put them in the chat. I will try to check periodically to get to your questions. If you have any property-specific ones that you don't want to put in the chat, just call us or email us, and we will help you out. All righty. Okay, so for some reason that should say, what is an ADU? An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. It's an accessory to your primary structure, whether that's a single family home or multifamily. And as you see from this rendering, it has fully independent living facilities, kitchen and bathroom, as you see here. Also has to have its own exterior entrance too, no matter what configuration that you're doing. In the past, they've been known as in-law suites, guest houses, granny flats. Luckily, the real term, the accurate term, accessory dwelling unit ADU, is really becoming the most used term. I see it in almost every applicable real estate listing as well, whether it's for a single family home or multifamily. Realtors are really jumping on this and letting you know if there's hopefully some potential ADU feasibility there. And not only that, we work with a lot of realtors too who ask us to do feasibility for properties that they're selling. So if you are in the market for, specifically, we've been doing it for multifamily because that's the trickiest one for ADUs. And you may see our reports attached to all of the information for that property. It'll give basic info that we offer, such as ADU feasibility, where they can go, potential sizes, attached, detached, and so forth. So I think it's really cool that realtors are jumping on this too, because it is actually an excellent selling point for a property. So what are ADUs used for, or what have they been used for? Obviously, expanding your home for like a single family home, an addition, if you're going to have family staying with you, elderly family, and then kind of our specialty, although we help with all areas, our specialty is really for increasing your monthly rental income, specifically for multifamily properties. And of course, the California initiative, which is why they removed a lot of that red tape, allowed it in multifamily properties, is to help California increase housing, because there is a housing crisis, especially affordable housing. So a lot of counties and cities have a bunch of incentives with ADUs, including, I think, San Diego has something like an ADU bonus program. If you designate another ADU or maybe an existing unit to affordable housing. So a lot of, again, cities and counties have these incentives, grants, if you're going to couple it with affordable housing, low income housing, moderate even. So there's a really big initiative to increase housing, put more homes on the market. And so that's what we help with as well, since, as I'll get to, you can do more ADUs for your multifamily property than you can single family. Okay, so for some reason, this should also say, what types of ADUs can I do? So generally speaking, there's two types of ADUs that you can do, attached and detached. The terms slightly differ when referring to single family versus multifamily, which I will get into. So an attached ADU, it can be a conversion, or it can be new construction that's attached to the structure if you're a single family home. New construction attached to the building is not permitted for multifamily. Multifamily attached only refers to internal conversions. As you can see in this diagram here, which is actually one of our projects that I think we just finished right now. This is in Inglewood. We did two ADUs here. This is one side of the tuck under parking. So it's garages basically with dwelling above, that were converted to two ADUs, one over here, and there was another one on the other side of the building. That is an example of an internal conversion attached ADU for a multifamily property. So for multifamily properties, you can do conversions of garages, tuck under, storage rooms. So it doesn't have to be parking if you don't have the capacity or room to eliminate parking spots. If you have a storage room, manager office, rec rooms, basements or attics that of course meet adequate ceiling height, carports, stuff like that, you can convert for multifamily. For single family homes, let's say you have one structure with the attached garage to your house. If your city allows it, you can have an attached ADU that's on top of the garage, or if your city allows it, you might be able to put it anywhere. We actually have a couple of those in design right now that are just kind of going to go more like centered in the house as opposed to over the garage. But again, it's only if your city allows that configuration. As far as detached goes, not really much of a difference between single family and multifamily for the definition. But a detached, exactly how it sounds, is a detached ADU. It's detached from your house or multifamily property. But this can be either a conversion of an existing detached structure like a garage, a carport, or a detached storage, or it can be completely new construction. Keep in mind, there are always, when building detached, building separation requirements. This is on top of the setbacks that you have to follow. Setbacks pertain to your property lines. Building separation, as the term sounds like, is how many feet you have to be from the primary building. The general distance has been 6 feet, although not only are some cities requiring sometimes 10 feet, we've even seen 15. What we've also been noticing, the more ADUs that we do and are in planning, the fire department has been requiring sometimes minimum of 10 feet. And this is for just fire egress requirements between the ADU and potential egress windows that are in the existing building. So if there are bedrooms that face the proposed ADU and they have required egress windows, which are needed for fires and access and escape, they have been requiring 10 feet even. So it's just, something everybody's learning at this point, since ADUs for multifamily properties are pretty new. But that's what we've been seeing as far as building separation goes. Here's an example of a detached ADU. Again, it's detached from the house or the building. How many ADUs can I add? So for multifamily properties, a lot of you are already familiar with this rule. You can do up to 25% of your existing number of units. I have a little chart down here that shows, because if you only have a duplex to 7 units, the 25%, of course, just is rounded down just to 1 unit. So really that 25% only makes sense after you have 8 units and above. Once you hit 8 units, you can then do 2 attached, again, which in multifamily language only refers to internal conversions. So again, those garages, tuck under, storage, anything that's within the footprint and envelope of your building is what you can convert. And it has to be uninhabited space. After 12 units, you can do 3, 16 units, 4, and so forth. I don't want to say there's no limit, because there kind of is, because building codes eventually do catch up with you. But not only that, the more units you do, honestly, usually it's after even 2 units, what we've been noticing. Something to consider when doing multiple ADUs is upgrading your system, basically, for your existing building, such as your electrical panel and main switchgear, whatever it's called. More often than not, you will have to upgrade your existing panel, because normally it only has enough amps to carry the duplex or however many units you have. So in order to attach new units, new meters, you most likely will have to upgrade your existing electrical panel. And then you have to consider, if you're going to get them individually metered, those costs can add up. They're usually always worth it, though, obviously, because of the added income that you're going to be obtaining. However, just those are things to consider when adding more and more units. For single family homes, you can do 1 ADU, and you can do what's called a junior ADU, but the junior ADU has owner occupancy requirements. So technically, you could make your house, a single family home, into 3 units. However, you cannot rent the junior ADU and the house separately. The owner has to live in one of them. So that's basically to prevent your single family home from becoming a triplex. It's to prevent, investors from just buying a house and turning it into a triplex and leaving. So you can do an ADU, whether it's attached or detached, and your junior ADU has to be attached, owner occupied, either the junior ADU or the house. There's a couple other prohibitions as well. Oops. So how many detached ADUs can you do? And this really only applies to multifamily. You can do up to 2 detached units. In addition, of course, though, with a disclaimer, in addition to that 25% of attached. And these detached, as mentioned before, can be conversions or new construction detached from the property. For, again, single family homes, it doesn't matter, attached or detached. You can only do one regular ADU and possibly your junior ADU, as long as it's within the existing footprint, an owner occupancy requirements for the house or junior ADU. So this asterisk actually is, I would say, more of, I think it's unfortunately been swaying more to the not in addition rule, because as the last year went on and more cities or counties were developing their ordinance, what I've seen at least is that more and more cities are not allowing both configurations to happen at the same time. Meaning, I'll use Los Angeles for an example. LA luckily does still allow you to do both. So let's say you have an 8-unit soft story property with tuck under parking and a yard. In LA, with this 8-unit building, you can technically convert your tuck under into 2 units, 2 ADUs, and if you have enough room in that backyard, do 2 more detached ADUs, bringing your 8-unit building to 12 units, which is really awesome. You don't have to buy another property. You create more housing, more rental units for families or individuals, and then it's amazing for you. You just added 50% of your existing units to the property, which is amazing. However, unlike LA, as you see here in the right column, a lot of cities stopped or never, I guess, when they developed their own ordinance, did not want to allow both configurations. So cities like Downey, Glendale, Pasadena, Costa Mesa, Torrance, Long Beach, Santa Clarita, and although it's not in the West Hollywood's ordinance, according to the planner, they're only going to allow one configuration only. So in these cases, you can only choose attached or detached. So let's say that same example of that tuck under soft story 8-unit building is in Glendale or Pasadena or Long Beach. You can either only convert those tuck under spots or do the detached ADUs. They do not allow you to do both. And then not only that, I'm wondering how I should describe this next part. So what I'm also going to get into is SB 897 with those new rules that just passed. Prior to that, there were a few cities who did not allow 2-story ADUs, such as Glendale and West Hollywood and Pasadena for its detached units. However, I guess we just have to wait and see, because effective January 1st is SB 897 with that increase of height, which raised the height limit from 16 feet to 18 feet. And I think, although it does say something about 25 feet for attached, I don't think that's relevant for multifamily properties anyways. However, I think what it also says is 18 feet, as well as the potential for 20 feet, allowing those 2 additional feet to be for roof pitch if it matches the existing building. So this should hopefully help if you don't want a flat roof and you have a pitched roof for your existing building. That 20 feet is where that applies. But the dwelling, I believe, is 18 feet. So this is huge. If you've already been working with us or been thinking about working with us or hesitant to work with us because we have described to you some excavation that we would have had to do in order to allow for those 2 stories, that's where the 18 feet really assist and help with those designs. But I guess we are all sticking around to see, will the cities who restricted to single story only change their ordinance next year and allow for 2 stories because of the 18 feet? We'll find out, and obviously we will let you know at that time. I will briefly go into seismic retrofitting in ADUs in case you do still have a building that has to be seismically retrofitted. This is an example in this transparent area of this rendering. That's where the tuck under parking is. So it's parking that is underneath dwelling units, and it's considered a soft story because these are some soft lines that are considered, weak and vulnerable for the event of an earthquake and the lateral force. It could fall based on the existing kind of pipe columns that were there. So a lot of buildings have to be seismically reinforced on the exterior in order to strengthen it from the outside. So if you do still have to do this, as you see from this rendering, you can convert these areas into an ADU and meet your seismic retrofitting codes, whether we use steel or shear walls within the structure of the ADU. We can still meet your retrofitting codes, but now you can invest that money instead of just for the seismic retrofit, combine those requirements and elements with the construction and development of an ADU. So here's just another example, converting that tuck under area and some detached units also. Here's just a sample too of building on top of whether it was an existing carport, a new structure to save some parking, how we can put a unit on top of a carport. This one, of course, is enclosed with the garage doors, and this one is probably our most popular design, a two-story structure with 2 units. This has 2 units, which is why the stairway is in the center. So yes, sometimes it might eliminate 1 parking spot, but if you have room, we can try to relocate the parking for you, and that would be reflected in the plans. But this at least preserves as much parking as possible and gets you those 2 detached ADUs at the same time. So the parking rules, since obviously I showed you a lot of examples, I discussed if you use garages or carports for the sake of the ADU, what the state law has always said is that if you use a garage or carport for the purpose of an ADU, you do not have to replace those parking spots. And if your property is within a half mile of public transit, like a bus stop, you do not have to add any additional parking. However, if you are a rent-controlled building, and you are now eliminating or removing a parking spot or storage that's in the lease of one of your tenants or all of your tenants, if you do not give them a rent reduction, that's the equivalent of raising their rent because you're taking away something but keeping the rent the same. So you cannot do that, obviously, for rent-controlled units. You must provide them a monthly discount when you're taking away their parking spots or their storage. This is a little old. The new, actually, it's not new at all, but the at least in LA, the recommended range is like $69 to $261, something like that, or $271, something like that. They really leave it up to the owner or management's discretion with what you offer to the tenant and what you guys agree on. What we've been just discussing and hearing from our clients is it depends on, of course, how many spaces that you are taking from them or removing, how much are they paying in rent. And this is stuff that the board would consider too, if it ever even reached that point, which luckily we have not heard of it ever escalating to that point. But if it does, the board would just ask for documentation of how long have they been in the unit, what is their monthly rent, any comps in the area for monthly parking garages, how, I guess, impacted is the area and difficulty of finding street parking and so forth. So those are all things considered when deciding what rent deduction to give your tenant. We get this question a lot too. As far as we know, ADUs do not trigger the reassessment. If you were already going to have a reassessment, that's separate. But it does not trigger a reassessment for your property. Your existing value remains, and the value of the ADU or the existing, however much you bought the property for, to my understanding, remains, with the value of your ADU is added on. And that is declared, I believe, when you are getting your ADU permitted. So the value of that, let's say we put 80,000 or something, 50,000, 100,000, that's added on and it becomes a blended assessment. So only that value is then taxed at, what is it, 1%, 1.5%, whatever it is. I'm not a tax expert, so please ask a tax expert instead. But this is what we receive from the LA Assessor's Office. So it becomes a blended assessment based on the value of the ADU added on. And then lastly, the bill I have been referring to, SB 897, which is a Bay Area Council, something like that, bill by him. I don't want to say his name so I don't butcher it. but this law was going through legislature for a while now, and it was recently passed and approved on August 31st, effective January 1st. I will just briefly summarize this. The old law had a 16-foot height limitation with 4-foot side and rear setbacks. So this bill is now increasing that max height to be 18 feet for the ADUs, which again, if you have spoken with us before, this really affected the 16 feet affected if you wanted to do 2-story dwelling, if you were going to do that carport with the ADU on top. We usually have to excavate a little bit, at least like 9 inches or a foot. If you were going to do double dwelling, we would normally have to excavate about 2 feet down, making a little bit of it subterranean. So you would kind of step down into the bottom dwelling. So of course that would require, heavier framing and materials, more excavation, and just, it wasn't always the ideal design for your ADUs. So the 18 feet allows us to use lighter framing. Now, if you want to do 2 dwelling, bottom floor and top, you can do that. So it really just opened the doors for more efficient designs, I would say, that work for more properties. Other changes, let's see. It would prohibit the ADU from triggering a requirement for fire sprinklers. To my understanding, it was they were not required if they were not required for the main building. So I guess this is enforcing that more, or maybe there's just a detail that I wasn't aware of prior for the fire sprinklers. But it can't trigger the requirement that you put fire sprinklers in your primary dwelling. And let's see, or in the proposed ADU as well. Let's see. Okay, so this part is about the unpermitted dwelling units, UDUs, bootleg units. They will not make the city, let's see, unless that UDU posed like a threat to health and safety of the public, they cannot deny a permit to get a previously unpermitted unit permitted. So if you were nervous before of, I don't want to raise any red flags, what if they make me tear the whole thing down or rip it up or just say no, they're really pushing at this point to allow previously unpermitted dwelling units to be permitted. Of course, though, they're not just going to let you permit it as is if, plumbing isn't up to code, electrical isn't up to code, and so forth. You will obviously have to get those items up to code, which are usually identified. One, we'll do a walkthrough, and anything that we see visually will let you know. But in more detail, once your building plans are approved, an inspector comes out and really does a thorough check on plumbing. He may ask to open up a patch in the wall to see any insulation, fire ratings, stuff like that. And then we'll give you kind of a corrections list, add an outlet here, insulate here, resilient channels there, whatever it is, a vent in the bathroom, something like that. So we or whomever you go with will help you bring your unit up to code so then it can get approved and you can get your certificate of occupancy for your UDU. And this was another thing that we're actually experiencing right now. We haven't really heard any complaints about it, but I guess it's cool that they are doing away with this. So currently, when we are going to demo a garage or a carport in order to put an ADU there or build like a new 2-story structure with a new carport, we've had to put demo notices all around the property. It's something maybe 35 days, something like that. I guess they are doing away with that. You're no longer required to provide written notice or post those notices of the demo. So I guess that's good. We'll reduce, questions, anything like that. So that is all for my presentation. If you have any further questions or just want to know general feasibility for your property or are interested now in doing plans or construction, or if you already have plans from another engineer or ADU company, we're happy to provide bids and quotes for those at no cost. So give us a call, email us, whatever it is, and we can meet you on the property. You can even just send us the address. We can do a quick feasibility for you with some general estimates to see if that's within your budget. and then can coordinate some site visits and meetings after that. So again, I hope to see you guys next Tuesday, Pasadena with AGLA's Expo. We will have a booth and we are presenting on ADUs and your balcony inspections. So I hope to see you guys there. If you need any help with registering, email us and we will send you all the information. I think it's free. So hope to see you guys there. If not, we're again presenting October 27th at the AOA's Long Beach Expo. But if you need anything, seismic retrofitting, ADUs, balcony inspections, or repairs, One Structural is your one-stop shop. I'm Helen. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.